I never knew how to build a house until I went all the way to Nepal to do some overseas community involvement program. As a young 17-year-old, I never knew how a house was built. But that night, I finally understood. Each and every night for 10 days, we would sieve sand, then we would carry it to the set location and then give it to the builders to build. That was when I realized how difficult a house was to build, but more importantly, that building something like a house needed to start from the most basic blocks, like sand. Over the next 10 minutes, I want to share with you 3 important principles about how you can build your very own portfolio for outperformance. But why is this even important? Well, very often when we build portfolios as beginning investors, we don't think very much about the process of building it. We think about the performance, the end goal, but we don't think about the process. And with these 3 principles, I hope that it helps you to build better portfolios, whether or not eventually the outcome is there. Because you're in it for the long game, not the short one. If you're going to check your portfolio every single day, you're definitely going to be losing. But over the long run, you will start to see the effects compounded. So let's start. How to build your portfolio? Well, the first most important thing is to build from the back. Just as a house was built from the most basic things like sand, life and a portfolio is like Lego. You can only build it one block at a time. So see each business that you buy or each share equity that you buy as a block. Each business is a building block. Well, you might be wondering, well, then what can I do to see it this way? So let's think about how you build a house. But before we think about how to build a house, let's think about how not to build a house. Well, you do that by not knowing what you're buying. When I first started investing, this was the first 5 stocks that I bought. SATS, which is an airline company. Then the next one was Raffles Medical Group, which is a healthcare group based in Singapore. Then another one, a Hong Kong Land, which develops properties and invests in properties all around key gateway cities in Asia, like Singapore, Hong Kong, Bangkok. Gazprom, which does oil drilling primarily in Russia. And then Silver Lake Axis, which is a fancy fintech company. Well, if you look at all these, you might be wondering, well, did I know anything about this? Well, the truth is, no, I don't know anything about all these, right? Like, if you look at the facts, I don't know anything about all these companies. Well, that is a definite recipe for failure. Because not knowing what you are buying is equivalent to throwing your money away in the casino. Well, the next most important thing is not knowing why you're buying. There are 2 key reasons why you would buy something. A business for capital appreciation, and the next one is for dividend yield. When you look at it instead with the barbell approach, you will start holding stocks for capital appreciation, for income, and then these 2 aspects for growth and then for income helps you to build a balanced portfolio. So let's think about the last thing. Where do you build a house? You don't build your house on a edge, right? You look for somewhere that's safer. So for example, today, you and I invest in heavily uncertain conditions. In COVID, you never even know whether the business is going to survive, let alone thrive. So where should you build? You don't build on an edge. You build on somewhere that's safer. So search for those 1 foot high hurdles that you can cross. As Warren Buffett once said, it is not how big your circle of competence is, but it's how well you define the parameters. Second principle is to build a team. Think of it as building a family of businesses that will bring you through from cradle to grave. Essentially, that is what your investment portfolio aims to do. It aims to sustain you now and for the future. It aims to sustain you through your working years and also for those years when you are retired and are no longer working. So are you comfortable with holding 3 to 5 years? As Warren Buffett said, if you ask me the risk of buying Coca-Cola today and selling it tomorrow, I'd say that is a very risky transaction. But he bought it with the idea of holding it for 10 years. Here's a question. Would you abandon your family if they had a problem? Today, you and I live in families, right? Would you abandon your family if they had a problem, if they had flaws, if they dropped suddenly? Well, most likely your answer is no. Similarly, why are you abandoning the stocks or the businesses that you buy just because they've dropped somewhat? Well, if you look at this particular diagram between 1944 to 2010, Robert Hagstrom studied the S&P 500 because he was wondering like which were the stocks that yielded the highest chance for return. And as you can see from here, right, over 3 to 5 years, the stocks that doubled were more likely. So over 1 year, you might not be able to see it again. Let's try it again. Over 1 year, only 9 stocks doubled, but over 3 years, the number increased to about 77 out of the 500 stocks. But over 5 years, the number increased to 150. That was almost a 9% chance. You see that the chance of you doubling your money is more if you manage to hold the stock for the long term. So think today, are you a business owner or are you just a shareholder? Think of yourself as a business owner rather than just holding the share certificates. Think of yourself as buying into a business, the whole business, rather than just a share of the business. You don't just own the share, you own the business. So to make sure that you understand the business will give you the longest term effects of outperformance. Well, as Benjamin Graham, the father of value investing, once said, investment is the most intelligent when it is most business-like. And Warren Buffett said, those are the 9 most important words ever written about investing. Well, why? Because it is only when you invest like a business owner rather than a shareholder that you start to analyze businesses rather than stocks. Today, there's a lot of talk about volatility, beta, how high the share price go, what's the momentum of it. But at the end of the day, it is the 3 drivers of performance. Momentum is just one of them, but there is also quality or how great the business is and also how cheap the business is in value. Value, quality, and momentum end up driving your greatest investment returns. So lastly, build to adapt. Build to adapt your portfolio. Before you even think of entering, think of your exit. So what will you do if the stock drops 20 to 33%? As this graph from Lee Freeman Shaw in his great book, The Art of Execution shows, if there was a percentage drop of 10%, you needed 11% gain to be able to earn back what you initially invested. But if the drop was even higher, like 50%, you need that 100% gain, and so on and so forth. What this graph is trying to show is that when there is a drop of between 20 to 33%, that's when you need to do something. You either add to your position or you cut your position. Doing nothing is a definite recipe for failure. So this is not what you do before, but what you do after the investment that drives your long-term investment outperformance. It is what you do after rather than before. Because at the end of the day, you and I, we are not perfect, we are imperfect, and we are going to make mistakes. But it's what you do after those mistakes, course correcting, adjusting, calibrating, optimizing, that determines your returns. In closing, when Warren Buffett first met Bill Gates, Bill Gates Sr., the father of Bill Gates, asked them at dinner what they thought was the most important factor behind their success. Bill Gates answered, focus. Warren Buffett said the same thing. Today, when you build a portfolio, focus on what you build. With these three principles, building from the back, building to adapt, and building like a business owner rather than just a shareholder, this will ensure your long-term outperformance. But most importantly, think of it this way. It is not what you do, but what you don't do that matters. Very often, you're tempted to chase the stock price, to chase what is the latest stock fad, what is the hottest stock dip. But it's what you don't do that matters. It is what you don't do in chasing and then selling quickly and then trading your positions quickly that ends up driving your investment low performance. But instead, it's what you don't do. It's how you focus. And so if there's one thing you take away this. Investment sometimes, as Charlie Munger says, is just about sitting on your ass. I hope you enjoy this and let me know what your comments were below. Thank you.